You Jake Sully?
I'd like to talk to you about a fresh start on a new world. You'd be making a difference.
Hello, welcome to the Damian+Devlin Show, and this is our review of Avatar, the 2009 film, directed by James Cameron, and starring Sam Worthington, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, and
Zoe Saldana.
Zoe Saldana. I'm glad you said it. I have trouble saying that name, but I really love the actress.
Right. I'm here to cover you, but this is becoming more of a thing, you notice. You're forgetting some of the actors that are in the movies.
It's not I forget them. I just try to get them in the right order and stuff. But anyhow, of course, we can't forget her. She's a huge part of this movie. Now, most of you probably have heard of Avatar. It is still the reigning champ of the biggest movie of all time. And you got to give James Cameron a little credit with this film because, you know, he did a little movie called Titanic. And
you might not have heard of it.
Yeah,
It's kind of
opening
small.
weekend for Titanic opened at $24 million, and everybody said it is going to be a disaster. It went on to become the highest grossing movie of all time. Then he decided his next project would be Avatar, and again everybody said it's going to be a flop. Fuck off.
Well done. And now it
I'm
goes
sorry.
away.
You were thinking the same thing.
I
too,
was
were you?
like, talk about disasters. Like, holy shit.
I sit there, how long can I hold it? Is it in
I
the
noticed
fucking
you were
neighborhood?
I noticed you were trying to go louder. To
I
cover.
was, okay.
Okie doke.
This happens. We don't do this
Well,
too
now
often,
you
so
won't
we're
forget
like,
Zoe Saldana.
yeah, well, in theory. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Let's eat. This is the food cut, so we can go eat. Welcome to the Damian+Devlin Show, and welcome to our review of Avatar, the 2009 film directed by James Cameron and starring Sam Worthington, Sigourney Weaver, Zoe Saldana, and Stephen Lang. This is currently the biggest movie of all time, the highest grossing movie of all time, and it's a fan favorite. Everybody seems to love it still, even though there has been a little bit of backlash to it, you know, people saying it's kind of long and boring and stuff like that. So we decided, Damien actually picked this movie. It's one of my favorites, but he picked it, and we thought we'd give it its day in court to see if it still lives up, because, you know, 2009, it's actually, you know, it's hard to believe it's that long that it came out. Now, the movie became a tremendous hit because of the fact of its 3D. This was basically the movie that got everybody wanting to do 3D, but James Cameron took it to new levels. Like, it was just incredible, and I don't think I've seen a movie in 3D that's ever come close to what James Cameron accomplished. I remember I was telling Damien before we watched it, I was sitting in the theater, sitting there, I don't want this to be a thing, because I don't want everything to be in 3D. 15 minutes into the movie, I'm like, every movie should be filmed like this. Sadly, nobody uses this technology. I don't know if it's too expensive or anything. Now, I want to give a little shout out to James Cameron. He's not my favorite director, but I respect the hell out of him because he's just incredible. He made a little movie called Titanic,
It's
which
tiny. You might not have heard of it. It's pretty small.
It opened with 24 million, and everybody said it's a flop. He's made a disastrous mistake. It wound up becoming the highest grossing film, going to #1. Then he decided Avatar would be his next film. It was already getting bad word of mouth before it opened. Didn't open very strongly. Guess what? James Cameron beat his own movie out for the top spot. I have to give a shout out to that because that's incredible. Like, two movies that were predicted to be flops went on to become #1 and #2 at the box office.
I have a question. Did he not do anything between Titanic and Avatar?
I think he went to Titanic a lot. He didn't he do like a documentary in IMAX or something
But there was
like
nothing in between, so that's almost a 10-year gap.
I'm not up on my James Cameron, but I don't think so.
Wow.
Now, the story is simple. It's basically a Marine, a disabled Marine, is asked to come on this project because his twin brother has an avatar that they're using to kind of go into this native people called the Navi in order for them to get this mineral that's under the thing, unobtainium or something like that. And basically, he's a Marine, so he's not really... He wants to do this just because his life is not going very well. But, yeah, and it's just his adventures with, you know, him kind of go... It's kind of like invading the mob, you know, like going undercover.
I know a lot of people have likened it to Pocahontas.
Dances with Wolves,
or
Ferngully,
yeah, a lot of things like that, and I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
There's definitely its own kind of spin on it. But basically, it's about foreign invaders basically trying to take a resource from another people that doesn't belong to them, essentially.
Right. And like the 3D is amazing, but we didn't watch 3D because we were in there when we watched it just now. It was just we did watch the extended cut, which I had never seen before. But honestly, even without the 3D, this movie is phenomenally beautiful to look at. Like almost every frame, you can tell he really took his time. Now, an interesting fact, he had the story for Avatar, I want to say right back almost around the time of Terminator Aliens. But the reason he didn't follow through is James Cameron said, we do not have the technology to pull off what he saw in his head.
Smart. It's very smart.
Right. And when you see what he puts out there, as I said, I was skeptical. I was sitting in the theater thinking this is not going to do anything for me. It blew me away. It's just, it is my favorite James Cameron film. And I'm going to pass it to you because I feel like I'm gloating so much about it because I love this movie.
You know, it's a pretty good movie, and I hadn't seen it since the theaters. Now, I remember this was my very first movie that I've ever seen in 3D. My image of 3D was like, you know, those red and blue glasses. Yeah, kind of like what this alien's wearing up here. That's my image of 3D, but they handed me these kind of similar to what you're wearing, and I was like, oh, these are big and clunky, and they hurt my head, and again, similar to you, I was like, this is stupid. I'm just going to take the glasses off and watch the screen, but of course, you can't do that because it's all blurry. So, about 10 minutes into it, and seeing this world and how it literally just felt like it was all around you within the theater, I did fall in love with the majestic imagery of the whole production. But you know what? Seeing it non-3D, I'm going to have to agree with you. It looks absolutely stunning, even without 3D glasses, 3D TV, just in a 2D environment. It's beautiful, it's breathtaking, and it's just visually stunning overall. And you know what? Up until now, like I've seen 3D movies constantly. After Avatar, it was like this huge thing. Like every movie had to do 3D, and they did it poorly. They did it absolutely terribly, and I called it a fad. And lo and behold, 3D is slowly going by the wayside again because nobody can do it right. And I feel Avatar was the only movie that was able to ever do it right. So whenever I saw a 3D movie, it had to meet Avatar level of standard. And I think you basically hit the nail on the head there where it was probably just way too expensive because even the tiniest little particles, seeing this in 3D, were there. And that's why I said it felt like it was all around me in the movie theater. So I have to give, like, my hat is off to Mr. Cameron for that. Like, the fact that he pioneered that and literally was able to do it in a way that nobody has been able to since. On top of that, I do also, I guess I've gone into my positives.
Yeah,
I have to talk about the script. The script is absolutely breathtaking and enthralling and just gripping. I went into this not knowing anything about it back when I saw it in theaters, and then the fact that we've seen the extended cut now, keep in mind again, I had not seen it since I saw it in theaters way back in 2009. Just amazingly well done. It's well written, the characters are interesting, the set pieces are fantastic, the props, the costume design, all very well done. Not to mention, of course, how could you have this beautiful world without the CGI, especially the aliens? They look fantastic. Especially, I even made a comment to him. So the avatars themselves look like the actors that are controlling these avatars, and it's fantastic. And I think honestly, Sam Worthington's Avatar, his little smile that he always does, I think that's more captivating than Sam Worthington's actual smile, even though he's got a great smile. Just everything about this world is just, it drags you right into it. And the fact that you said people found this movie boring, like, yeah, it's 3 hours long, but I remember looking at the timer on the Blu-ray player and going, holy crap, we've spent an hour and a half watching this already? I feel like we just started it. That's how engrossing this movie is. Obviously, it's got the military aspect of it. The Marines are in there, and yeah, they want to kick ass. And like, you start the movie off and like, these are the good guys. They're going to kick ass. And you very quickly realize, you know what? There's another side to it. There's another story to it. And the support for the Marines for me kind of, and this doesn't happen often, they kind of went away. I didn't want the Marines to win. And anybody that knows me knows that I always usually root for the bad guys. Like, go to Star Wars. I'm always a supporter of the Empire. So the fact that I stopped supporting these Marines about like halfway through the movie is a big thing, because it just truly endears you to the characters. Like, you get to know the Na'vi, you get to know Zoe Saldana's character and all the others, and it's just the world that they live in is so magical and wonderful. And I can kind of relate to Jake Sully wanting to be a part of that as opposed to his real life, because he does such an amazing job of playing this disabled veteran. He's lost the use of his legs. And so the very first time he goes in there, he gets the use of this Avatar's legs. And I think that's like the best scene in the film, because anybody that's lost the ability to use their legs, I guarantee you would do anything in order to have that back. And he does, and he goes wild with it. And it's just a wonderful scene. And when he comes back to his real body, it's very subtle, but he kind of just looks at his legs for a second, and he says nothing. His face says nothing. But inside, the character's mind is like, God damn, I want my legs back permanently. And you can just feel it, and it's like a fraction of a second, and it speaks volumes. And that is just a performance that you just can't teach. That is just natural ability, and he does such an amazing job. The music, James Horner, I love music in movies because it's either really good or really bad. I'm not going to go back to Rain Man, but so I had to. But this one, James Horner does a great job. And I even pointed it out to him at one point. There are aspects of other movies in the soundtrack for Avatar itself, because I'm a big fan of military movies. You guys all know that by now. James Horner does the soundtrack to a World War II movie called Enemy at the Gates, which we may get to at one point in the future. And during a large part of the end of the movie, there's a big battle. And I could have sworn there were aspects of Enemy at the Gates in the music that we were listening to. And so I was like, who does the soundtrack to this? I looked it up. James Horner. Lo and behold, James Horner did Enemy at the Gates. And then, of course, there was other aspects in there from other James Horner movies. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant, because he's meshed it into its own thing by going to his previous work. So honestly, I cannot speak enough about it. This movie was just wonderful, through and through.
Is that your positive?
I know. I could keep going on. I think it'd be verbal diarrhea at that point.
I don't want to make this a love fest for James Cameron, but he really deserves all the credit for this. When I was watching this movie, I remembered some of the other reviews, because we've done quite a few James Cameron. I know we got another one coming up fairly soon. But what I realized is that every movie he did worked up to Avatar, in my eyes. Everything that I've found problems with in his other movies, he has found ways to fix. And that I give him credit for. Not only just the technical stuff, but he wrote the script on this. And this was an idea that's been with him forever. But just some of the things he's learned to tone down. His story writing is good. As I said, I love a lot of his movies, like Terminator, Aliens, Titanic, but I have issues with all of them. All the issues I have with him in this are actually, he seems to have fixed. Story, I think the story's wonderful here. The actors are subtle. We'll get to that when I talk about the actors, because they definitely need a shout out. Like the Marines, I mentioned in the Aliens, are a little too much. I think they're just right in this. They're still tough, and they still get to say a couple of kick-ass things, but I like them because they seem like real people.
So I'm just going to ignore the fact that you like these Marines better than the Aliens Marines.
Okay,
I'm going to ignore that. You know, I took a shot at Rain Man.
But what I like is when Sully meets Stephen Lang's character. Stephen Lang's tough, but you get the feeling that he's a nice guy. But as the movie goes down, he doesn't just become evil. You just realize this is me doing my job. And I love that about him. He's just not evil. And when he starts getting to that point, you see the reasons why. He's pissed. When they like start fighting back and stuff, he's pissed. So it's not just a clever, you know, like I mentioned in another movie that we'll talk about later, Titanic, where it just seems like the characters just suddenly become evil. You see why Stephen Lang's pissed off and fighting dirty by the end of it. And that's what I love. And we'll go right into that with the actors should get some great things. Sam Worthington, I know a lot of people call him bland. Like, I've seen a lot. I think he gives a wonderful performance in this. Like, just, it's so subtle, but when you see his character builds in confidence, it's there. Sigourney Weaver, just another amazing performance. I love that she's not on the screen long, but she commands every scene she's in. And, you know, Stephen Lang, I've already kind of raved about him. It's great. I have to give a huge shout out to Zoe Saldana, because she's one of the few actors that do it all with the screen capture, and just like we don't see a human side. She's not an avatar, she's an actual Navi. And her performance is like wonderful. You know, everybody talks about Andy Serkis, and I'm not putting Andy Serkis down. He is amazing. I can't wait till we do some of his films. But Zoe Saldana kicks ass in this role. Her innocence. She overreacts at parts, but you know it's based on pure emotion, passion. That's what these people are. Everything they react to is passion. They think with their hearts. They don't think with their minds. It's a wonderful performance. Music, solid. Everything I loved. It works really well. I loved that how you had the regular orchestrations with a lot of like indigenous like drumming and stuff like that, chanting, stuff like that. Beautiful. Can't rave enough about how well this movie looks.
Did you notice that it's very subtle, and again, going back to James Horner's brilliance with his music, very subtle, but every time it's went to a scene with a military aspect, there was that very ever so light, you have to listen very carefully, otherwise you'd miss it, but a
No, but I love that. You picked that out. That's
every
awesome.
time, and I was like, wow. You'd honestly blink and you miss it, but it's there.
Yeah, no, that's great. I didn't know that, but
yeah.
I'll look for that next time I watch it. But I just can't say enough about this movie. Yeah, why don't we do negatives?
So, again, very similar to Dirty Dancing, I had to kind of think about this. Now, unlike Dirty Dancing, I did manage to find a couple of things that did bring me down.
I did too.
First of all, I do have to say, for the time, 2009, the CGI of the Navi themselves was out of this world. Absolutely brilliant. And it's not as bad as something going back to Terminator, where you see those stop motion kind of things going on. But the Navi themselves, the CGI that is kind of aged over the last few years. And that's because our technology at this point is just advancing so fast and so rapidly. It's no fault of the movie at all, but I can definitely tell looking at them that they are indeed CGI. So that for the first few moments that we meet these avatars and we see them, it took me out of it. Also, there was a subplot there that I think was actually included in the movie and then just completely cut. It's where... So, I'm going to do my best to avoid spoilers here, but Jake actually makes a deal with the Marines very early on in the movie. But he's not with the Marines, he's with the science team. And one of the science team members actually sees Jake making this deal, which would kind of be a conflict of interest at this point. But he never brings it up. We see that, he sees it, he hears it, the scientist knows what Jake's doing, but he never does it. So I feel like it could have been more added drama, more punch to the narrative. Maybe James Cameron thought it wasn't necessary and there was enough drama, but I just feel it was unnecessary to see the scientist at this point, then see what's going on and not do anything about it. So I was waiting for it to come, but it just never came up, and it kind of disappointed me in that.
That's fair. I just took it as, like, Jake is a former Marine, so he's hanging with the Marines. I just thought the scientists thought, oh, of course they're going to be buddy-buddy.
Well, that's the thing,
he
though.
probably feels more... Because at the beginning, they kind of put Jake down in the science department.
They do, yes.
So he obviously... And that's what I love about the
thing
movie.
is, though, those scientists, they love what they're doing, and they're devoted to their cause. And if they see anybody trying to, like, throw a wrench in the plans or hinder that in any way for the interests of another party... somebody's going to say something. We all know these scientists, they're not afraid to speak their minds. That's just something I couldn't wrap my head around.
If I recall, that character was kind of like a nerdy little scientist, so maybe he was afraid of the Marines.
I don't think so, because by the end of it, he's standing up and doing what's right, so I don't think so. But it just disappointed me, that's all. But besides the CGI, besides that one failed subplot, I really don't have anything negative to say about this movie.
Well, we agree on one, because I have two negatives, and one's kind of fluff. But the CGI is, for 2009, it is phenomenal. I had problems... Not problems, because I can look at a movie like the old King Kong and say, oh my God, that must have been phenomenal back in the 30s. No. I'm not taken out of a movie like that. But I did notice that I thought to myself, James Cameron is working on a sequel to this. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I kept thinking, oh my God, what is he going to give us for this? Because if the CGI, and it kind of made me a little sad that 2009, and here we are just less than a decade, and you can already see a movie's aged a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still awesome. But I kept thinking of the movies, the Planet of the Apes movies they done, and I can't wait to see what James Cameron does with that screen capture that they use for that. Because he's working on that.
Oh, yeah.
And those Navi are going to be fully like, because anybody who's watched those Planet of the Apes movies, the actors like Andy Serkis, again, promoting Andy is like just phenomenal. And I'm sitting there, Cameron's working on that. We're going to see a lot more facial, and they already have a lot of good stuff. My fluff negative thing is I love the soundtrack in this. And I don't mind the Leona Lewis song at the end, I See You. But after getting that cool Heart Keeps Going On.
Oh, My Heart Will Go On. Right, Celine Dion.
From Titanic. I would have wanted something more epic at the end. If Celine Dion can... Because that's one of my favorite parts of Titanic, that song. I know some people don't like it.
It's okay. It's become a big meme these days.
Yeah, but the Leona Lewis song is fine, but I wanted something big and powerful.
Oh, you wanted like heavy metal guitars? Like, I see
sure,
you.
Why not?
You're gonna come to my world and try to take my resources, but we're gonna kick your ass right out of town.
Why not? That sounds wonderful. Why not? But as I said, I don't mind the song. It's just kind of like it wasn't even a hit on the charts. That's how, I think they played the video once and people were like, it's so forgettable.
I've heard My Heart Will Go On the radio a few times, but I've never heard this.
Yeah.
I've never heard this one. I was a kid back then, all right? Like 6 years old.
Yeah, it was everywhere. You go shopping, there it is.
That's true. I have heard it in grocery stores.
I've heard people say, and we shouldn't be talking about Titanic because I know we're going to be doing it soon, but I've heard people walk out of grocery stores when they play that because they're so sick of it. But I like it. It's one of my favorite bits.
I like it.
Anyhow, we're at the point valuation.
Now, this is the thing. I had to study this very hard in my head. And I know we're making like a science out of this. At least in my mind. I like this. I like this. Oh, but this is a drawback, so I'm going to have to maybe take a few points away. But overall, the whole experience, the extended edition clocked in at 3 hours, 15 minutes?
No, I don't even think it's that much.
3 hours, roughly?
Maybe, yeah.
Out of that whole 3 hour experience, maybe 10 minutes of it were spent So honestly, because of that, I have to give it a 4.5. It matches my favorite movie in score. It's still not in the top 50 of my favorite movies, but it is still a fantastic film from start to finish.
I normally give this movie a 4.5, but seeing the extended cut and reminding how much I love this movie every time I see it, you're all thinking, is he going to go there? Is he going to go there? 5! I'm going to go there. I'm going to give it a 5. I think it holds up pretty well, and I still loved seeing it. And you know what? I could watch it again next month, and I would not be bored by it. I just love so much about it. Anyhow, that's our review of Avatar, and we've got lots more coming up, and we've got some special announcements coming up as well that I look forward to seeing what you say about that. And please, we want to hear from you. And now I'll turn it over to you.
So as you said, we do want to hear from you, so definitely comment. Let us know what you thought of Avatar. Did you like the whole production of it? Did you maybe take some things away that you didn't like? Are you one of the people that think it's boring? If so, why? Tell us. We want to know your opinions. As well, we want to know what you want us to review next. We have had some fantastic suggestions over the last few months, and we definitely want those to keep on coming, so keep telling us what you want us to see. Comment, like, subscribe so you never miss a beat. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time.